What happens when a CEO trades his corner office for a beat-up delivery van and finds one of his hardest workers crying behind a dumpster? Harlen Tate leaned against the window of his 10th-story office, watching the rain tap against the glass. From here, everything looked calm, profitable. But the numbers didn't lie. Complaints from one of his 10 bakery locations had been stacking up over the last 3 months. Late deliveries, rude customer service, missing stock. He'd built the business with his own 2 hands, baking through the night, delivering before dawn. Now things were slipping, and the reports he got from the district manager didn't add up. "I want eyes on the ground," Harlen told his assistant. "No filters, no clean-ups." "I'm going in." He disguised himself with a graying beard, a baseball cap pulled low, fake glasses, and a name tag that read Illy. His plan: shadow as a delivery trainee out of the Northside location, the one with the most complaints. It was a busy store, and with a recent staff shortage due to 2 drivers quitting over poor management. No one questioned when Illy showed up for the 4 a.m. shift. No one there had met him in person. He didn't do store visits often anymore, and the staff turnover had been high the past year. That helped with staying under the radar. By the second day, Harlen had already spotted cracks. The store manager, Denise, a sharp-tongued woman in her 40s, barked orders but rarely lifted a finger. She spent more time on her phone than helping the team. The assistant manager, Jonah, seemed checked out. He did the bare minimum and disappeared for long stretches. And in the middle of it all, the drivers and counter crew were drowning. Harlen was paired with a delivery guy named Mason, maybe 26 or 27. Wore the same faded hoodie every day. Quiet, polite, didn't complain. He knew the route cold, hustled from the van to back doors, and always greeted the cafe owners with a smile even when they yelled at him for being late. "Sorry again," Mason would say. "We had a hold-up at the store." "I'll make it up to you." Harlen noticed Mason didn't take breaks, skipped lunch, never once raised his voice. On the 4th day, they were running late again because Denise had refused to load the van until she finished her coffee. As they pulled into the alley behind a cafe, Mason put the van in park and said, "Give me 10, man, I just need a sec." Harlen nodded. "Yeah, go ahead." Mason stepped out and walked around the side of the building. Harlen waited, then got out to stretch his legs. He rounded the corner and froze. Mason was crouched behind the dumpster, shoulders shaking, his face was buried in his hands. Harlen didn't move. He didn't want to embarrass him, but something in his chest tightened. This wasn't just a bad day. He waited a beat, then cleared his throat. "Hey. You okay?" Mason looked up fast, wiping his face with his sleeve. Yeah, I'm good, just allergies. In the rain," Harlen said softly. Mason gave a weak laugh. "Right." Harlen sat down beside him on the curb. "You want to talk?" Mason hesitated, then shrugged. "It's fine, just life, man. My kid's got a surgery next month. Insurance barely covers it. Rent's late. And Denise docked my hours last week cause I was 5 minutes late. I've been working here 3 years, never called out once, but that doesn't count for anything." Harlen clenched his jaw. "Why'd she dock you?" She said she doesn't care about excuses. "My car broke down. I was going to explain, but she cut me off, said if I didn't like it, I could quit." Harlen stayed quiet, letting it sit. Mason stood up. "Sorry, man, didn't mean to dump all that. Let's just finish the route." Harlen nodded slowly. "Yeah, let's finish." The rest of the day, Harlen kept his mouth shut, but his mind was racing. When they got back to the store, Denise was in the back office watching TV on her tablet. "We're back," Mason said, logging the delivery slips. Denise didn't even look up. "Cool. You're off the schedule Saturday, by the way. Gave your hours to my nephew. He needs the cash." Mason blinked. "But talk to me next week," she said. "I'm busy." Harlen felt the heat rise in his neck. He turned and walked out before he said something he couldn't take back. Not yet. That night, he sat in his car outside the store for a long time. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was a broken system, one that was hurting the exact kind of person he'd once been. Tomorrow, he'd come back. But not easily. The next morning, Harlen walked through the front door of the Northside bakery just after 6. No disguise, no alias. He wore a plain black jacket, jeans, and a quiet look that didn't match the usual confidence he carried in boardrooms. The early crew barely looked up. Most of them had never seen the owner in person. Then Denise stepped out from the back hallway, holding her tablet and a half-eaten muffin. "Can I help you?" she asked, squinting. Harlen didn't raise his voice. "Yeah, I'm Harlen Tate. I own this place." The silence that followed was sharp enough to slice through the hum of the ovens. Denise lowered her muffin slowly. "You're the—" she blinked. "Wait, what?" "I've been working deliveries undercover this week. I've seen everything. We're going to talk." "Now?" She opened her mouth, but he was already walking past her into the back office. She followed, stiff and cautious. Inside, Harlen shut the door. "I'm going to be direct. You've abused your authority, ignored your team's needs, and used your position for personal convenience. You've rerouted hours to family, dismissed concerns without hearing them, and created a culture of fear and silence. That's over." Denise crossed her arms. "With all due respect, you don't understand what it's like trying to run this understaffed. Everyone's got problems. You think I'm the reason this place is struggling?" "I know you're part of it," Harlen said. "And I also know what leadership looks like under pressure. I've done it. You've had chances to earn trust, and instead you've burned it. You can't just walk in and fire me based on a couple days of playing delivery guy." "I can, and I am," he said, effective immediately. Her mouth stayed open a second too long. Then she scoffed and grabbed her bag from under the desk. "You'll regret this," she muttered as she left. The door clicked shut behind her. Harlen stood still for a moment, then pulled out his phone. By 8, he'd called in 2 regional supervisors from other locations. One would oversee the transition, while the other began interviews with the staff to understand what had really been going on. Harlen wasn't interested in reports anymore. He wanted words from the people who lived the work. He stepped back out into the kitchen, where Mason was loading trays into the warming cabinet. When he saw Harlen, his eyes widened. "You're the guy from the van." "I'm Harlen," he said. "Yeah." Mason wiped his hands on his apron, looking unsure whether to be embarrassed or angry. "I wasn't trying to trap anyone," Harlen said. "I needed to see things for myself, and I saw a lot." Mason nodded slowly. "So, what happens now? We start fixing it." By noon, Harlen had spoken with everyone on shift. One of the counter workers, a 19-year-old named Jess, explained how she'd been promised a raise 3 months ago for covering night shifts, but never saw it. Another driver, Theo, mentioned being required to work 6 days a week or risk losing hours altogether. "I haven't seen my daughter on a weekend in 2 months, Theo said. "Every time I ask for even one Saturday off, I get told there's no coverage." Harlen wrote everything down by hand. No assistants, no filters. In the break room, he sat across from Jonah, the assistant manager. The man looked nervous, foot tapping under the table. "You've been clocking out midday and not coming back for hours," Harlen said. Jonah looked down. "Yeah." "Why?" He hesitated. "I thought Denise didn't care. She said as long as I kept the schedule filled and the register balanced, I could split if I needed to." "And you needed to? What exactly?" Jonah didn't answer. "You're stepping down." "Immediately," Harlen said. "You can finish your shift if you're willing to actually work it." "I get it," Jonah said quietly. "I let things slide." "No, you vanished. That's not the same." Jonah stood and nodded. "Fair." With both managers gone by the end of the day, Harlen called an all-hands meeting in the front of the store. It wasn't polished or rehearsed. He didn't stand behind a counter or on a box. "I can't undo what's already happened," he began. "What I can do is make sure it doesn't keep happening. Starting today, hours will be assigned based on performance and fairness, not favoritism. If you're doing the work, you'll be heard, respected, and compensated." He turned to Mason. "You've been consistent, professional, and dependable." None of that went unnoticed. Mason shook his head slightly. "I'm not looking for special treatment, man." "This isn't about special treatment," Harlen said. "It's about recognizing value. You're getting a raise 40%, effective immediately. And your Saturday hours are now optional." A few people clapped. Mason just stared. "I don't know what to say," he finally managed. "You said plenty behind that dumpster," Harlen replied. "You just didn't think anyone was listening." Harlen stayed late that night, helping pack dough for the next day's run. He didn't ask anyone to stay with him, but a few did. Jess offered to sort the delivery slips. Theo helped rearrange the back storage shelves to make space for incoming stock. It wasn't because they were told to. It was because, for the first time in a long time, someone was standing in the room with them, not above them. Before leaving, Harlen posted a sign on the employee board by the lockers. Leadership positions opening. Internal applications only. No seniority required, just commitment, solutions, and respect. He left the North Side location just after midnight, exhausted but grounded. The bakery still had problems, staffing gaps, low morale, years of neglect to undo. But now the rot had a light shining on it, and soon it would be gone. As he walked to his car, he saw Mason locking up the delivery van. He paused, then jogged over. "Hey," Harlen said. "You good on transportation?" Mason shrugged. "Still working on getting the car fixed. Might take a week or two. You'll have a rental covered by the company as long as you need it." Mason looked down, then back up. "You didn't have to do any of this." "I know," Harlen said, "but I should have." Then he nodded once and walked to his car. The rain had stopped. The streetlights flickered above the quiet lot. And for the first time in months, the North Side store closed with more hope than noise. By the following week, the North Side location was unsteady but operational. Harlen had kept his promise. He stayed on site, without ceremony or delegation. The flow of each day was still strained. There weren't enough drivers to fully cover the routes, and the front counter was often backed up. But something had shifted. People didn't look over their shoulders before speaking. They asked questions without flinching. Not because things were perfect, but because the silence had broken. Harlen stood by the back loading dock, sorting invoices, when a voice caught his attention. "You're the guy, huh? The bakery boss?" A tall woman in a faded denim jacket leaned against the doorframe. Her arms were crossed, but her expression held no hostility, just curiosity and a guarded edge. She was lean, probably mid-30s, dark curls pulled into a low bun. A canvas bag hung from her shoulder. "You must be Callie," Harlen said. "District manager sent your file over. Said you were interested in taking interim management here." "I didn't say I was interested," she replied. "I said I'd come look," he nodded. "Fair enough." Callie stepped inside, glancing around the back room. "First thing I noticed, your dry storage's a mess. You've got flour bags sitting under a vent. That's going to mold. Didn't have anyone in charge of inventory rotation. You'd be the first." She looked at him again. "You're not what I expected. I get that a lot." He didn't explain further. Callie didn't ask. By the end of her walkthrough, she agreed to take over for 2 weeks. "I'm not promising miracles, but I'll keep the doors open and the people standing. After that, we'll see." Harlen gave her full authority on scheduling and operations. He didn't hover. That same afternoon, Mason returned from his delivery run slower than usual. He walked into the prep area, dropped the clipboard onto the counter, and sat down on an overturned crate without saying anything. Harlen, glancing over from the dough mixer, waited a moment before speaking. "Something go wrong?" Mason rubbed his forehead. "One of the cafe owners on the Grandview route, the older guy with the patio, he said if I was going to keep showing up late, he'd start sourcing from someone else. I tried explaining it's not me, it's the load time, but he wasn't hearing it." "Did you tell him you've been making up for the delays out of your own time?" "I don't think he cared." Harlen nodded once, then called over to Callie. "Can you come take a look at this route log?" She came over, scanned the sheet, and frowned. "You've got Grandview slotted third," she asked Mason. "Yeah, that's how it's always been. You're losing 20 minutes in backtracking every time." "We'll flip at Grandview first, then loop back through the residentials." Mason blinked. "That'll actually work." "Of course it will," Callie said. "But it won't matter if your van's not ready when you are. What's the holdup in mornings?" "Load time." "We're still short 2 people." She turned to Harlen. You have anyone you can bring in for mornings, even part-time, he thought for a moment. There's a guy over at the Southridge location, works nights doing cleanup, he's solid. Might want the extra hours. You trust him? I do. Then call him. The next morning, a quiet 22-year-old named Lewis showed up at 4 sharp. By 5:30, the van was loaded and on the road. Mason made it to Grandview with 6 minutes to spare. The cafe owner didn't say thank you, but he didn't threaten to drop the contract either. Progress. 2 days later, a different problem surfaced. Jess, the counter worker who'd been promised a raise, approached Callie during prep. "Can I talk to you in the back?" Callie followed her without hesitation. "I'm not looking to complain," Jess said, keeping her voice low, "but something's off with the way Theo's been handling the register." Callie didn't interrupt. "Yesterday he closed out the drawer before I could verify the count, said he'd handle it. But today, when I logged in, the numbers were short, not by much, just like $5, but I swear I counted right." Callie asked 2 questions. "You sure it wasn't a misring?" "And has this happened before?" Jess hesitated. "A couple times, but I thought maybe I made a mistake. Now I'm not sure." Callie didn't respond with reassurances. She simply said, "I'll look into it." That evening, Harlen found her reviewing security footage in the back office. She didn't look up. "I checked the drawer logs," she said. "Theo's been closing solo every Thursday, always insists on staying late to clean, no one else verifies the count." Harlen narrowed his eyes. "You think he's pocketing?" "I don't think I know, watch this." She pointed to the screen. Theo was at the register, door locked, lights dimmed. He opened the till, counted slowly, then slipped a small roll of bills into the inside pocket of his hoodie. Harlen didn't speak for a long moment. "Call him in," he said finally. Theo arrived 5 minutes later, wiping his hands with a towel. "What's up?" he asked. Harlen didn't waste time. "We've reviewed the drawer footage you've been taking from the till." Theo's expression didn't change. "I don't know what she told you, but I haven't taken anything." "We saw the tape," Harlen said. "We're not guessing." Theo glanced at Callie, then back at Harlen. "I've been short on rent. I wasn't going to keep doing it, just needed to catch up." "You stole from your coworkers," Harlen said quietly. "And you lied to their faces every day. I was going to pay it back." "You're done here." Theo opened his mouth, but Harlen raised a hand. "You're not going to explain it away. You made a choice. That choice has consequences." Theo walked out without another word. Harlen sat down after he left. Callie leaned against the door, watching him. "You know," she said, "some owners would have just written it off, quietly let him go, kept it under wraps. I'm not interested in quiet anymore," she nodded once. "Then you're doing the right thing." That night, Harlen stayed late again. He didn't ask anyone to join him. Jess stayed anyway, drawers balanced, she said, setting the final slip on the counter. "And I double-checked," he smiled faintly. "I never doubted you," she paused. "Thanks for believing me. You earned it." Outside, the street was quiet. The city had settled into its late rhythm delivery, vans parked, storefronts darkened. Harlen stepped out into the air, tired but alert. The work ahead was still long. One fired thief and a new route schedule didn't fix a broken culture overnight, but it was a start. A real one. And this time, he wouldn't be watching from the 10th floor. By the start of the second week, the North Side Bakery was holding together, but just barely. Orders were going out on time, but only because everyone was pushing themselves to the edge. Lewis, the night cleanup guy who joined morning prep, had quietly started staying an extra hour past his shift to mop the loading bay after deliveries. Jess had taken on closing duties even though it wasn't part of her role. Mason had stopped asking for help on the longest routes. He just drove faster, lifted harder, kept quiet. Harlen noticed. He walked in just after 5 on a Tuesday morning, carrying 2 trays of coffee and a bag of fresh egg sandwiches from a diner down the block. There was no grand speech. He just set the food on the breakroom table and said, "Eat before it's cold." Callie was already there, rolling out inventory sheets by hand. She glanced at him. "You're trying to keep them upright without adding staff," she said. "That won't last." "It's temporary," he said. "Harlen." "I know." She looked up from the clipboard and set her pen down. You said you weren't interested in silence anymore. That has to include from yourself. He nodded once. By noon, he had a list of every short-staffed shift across the week. 3 counter positions had gone unfilled since Denise's departure. The delivery schedule was missing a backup driver entirely, and prep was surviving on borrowed hours. Harlen pulled his phone and called Alan, the GM from the Riverside branch, one of the most stable in the network. I need 3 of your best, he said. 1 counter, 1 prep, 1 driver, temporary reassignment. If they're solid, they'll stay. Alan didn't hesitate. I'll have them there by Thursday. That gave them 48 hours to keep the place balanced. Late that afternoon, Harlen walked into the prep area and caught Mason setting down a stack of empty trays a little too hard. He was sweating through his shirt and his right wrist was wrapped in a makeshift bandage. What happened to your hand? Harlen asked. Caught it on the van door. It's fine. Let me see it. Mason hesitated, then peeled the bandage back. The skin across the top knuckle was torn and already bruising. You need to get that looked at. I'll be fine. It's not worth missing a run. Harlen didn't respond right away, then he pointed toward the office. Grab your stuff. I'm driving the route. You think I forgot how to haul a tray of croissants? Mason didn't argue. He just pulled off his apron and walked out slowly, cradling his hand. As Harlen loaded the van, Callie stepped outside. People are starting to realize you're not leaving, she said. I'm not. They're watching how you move, not what you say. That's why they're still standing. He didn't reply. She watched him secure the last rack, then spoke again. You're not going to be able to fix this store for the long term unless you rebuild the bench. People need paths up, not just out. I've already started looking at internal candidates, he said. Jess has the eye for detail. Lewis doesn't miss a single task. And Mason, he needs more than a raise, she cut in. He needs a future. Harlen nodded once and climbed into the van. The route was slower than he remembered, but muscle memory kicked in. Loading bays, handwritten invoices, the quiet nods from cafe owners who didn't recognize him but appreciated the punctuality. He returned after dark, tired and sore but clear-eyed. The next morning, Jess was at the counter reviewing the day's specials when Harlen approached. You ever thought about stepping into a leadership role? She looked up, startled. Me? You've kept this place running without anyone asking you to. That's not luck, she hesitated. I don't have experience managing people. You have experience earning their trust. That can't be taught. What's the catch? You'd be interim shift lead, 3 weeks, small raise to start, training support from Callie. If it works out, it becomes permanent. She looked down at the clipboard, then back at him. I'll try. That's enough. Later that day, Lewis was checking off cleaning logs in the back room when Harlen stepped in. You ever consider full-time? Lewis straightened up. I've thought about it, just didn't think I'd be asked. You show up early, leave late, and never cut corners. I need that on the team, Lewis nodded slowly. I'm in. By Thursday, the 3 temporary transfers arrived. Tasha, a seasoned counter lead from Riverside, jumped in like she'd been there for months. She taught Jess how to manage flow without stress. Malik, a prep veteran, reorganized the dry storage and showed Lewis how to run inventory rotation in under 20 minutes. And Jared, the delivery driver, immediately offered to split the heavy double routes with Mason. By the following Monday, the store was running with just enough breathing room to let people catch up on lost sleep. Harlen called a team meeting in the back. No speeches. No announcements, just a table, folding chairs, and a box of fresh pastries from a nearby competitor, as a reminder that they weren't the only game in town. You've all been through more this past month than anyone should have to deal with just to keep a job, he said. But you didn't fold, you didn't walk, you made this place worth saving again. No one interrupted, they didn't need to. I won't pretend this place is perfect now. We've got more hiring to do, more training, more listening, but I'm not going back to my office and leaving you behind. I've set up a rotation. Every location gets a visit once a week, not by a district manager, by me. He looked around the room. And if you ever feel like something's off, if someone disrespects you, cuts corners, makes you feel invisible, you don't need to wait for me to show up. You speak. You will be heard, that's a guarantee. Mason raised his hand. Can I say something? Harlen nodded. I almost quit before you showed up. I didn't think anyone cared. I didn't think it mattered if I was here or not, but the raise, it wasn't just about the money. He paused. It told me I meant something, and that changed everything. Harlen stepped forward. You do matter, all of you, and I should have made that clear a long time ago. Callie leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching with a faint nod. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. After the meeting, people didn't rush out. They lingered, talked, laughed, even made plans to grab food together. Not because they were told to bond, but because they wanted to. As the room emptied, Harlen stood beside Callie. You ever think about staying? He asked. She looked at him. I came to help for 2 weeks. And I've seen worse, I've seen better. But I've never seen a place change this fast because the owner got his hands dirty. He waited. I'll stay 6 months, she said, on one condition. Name it. Let me build a training program for internal promotions. No more waiting for someone to quit before someone else can rise. Done. She held out her hand. He shook it. Outside, the city was waking up. Sunlight filtered through the bakery windows, catching flour dust in the air like snow. Harlen walked to the front, looked over the clean counters, the full racks, the people behind them. No more guessing what was happening behind closed doors. No more distance. No more silence. He didn't just own the place, now he was part of it again.